Journey to a world without locks. Imagine a place where the concept of privacy is foreign, where every action, every breath is shared with those around you. This is a world where secrets have no place to hide and life is lived in the open. The first homes weren't homes at all. They were shelters, caves, pits, brush huts, built not for comfort but for survival. Archaeological digs at sites like Chauvet in southern France show us that these spaces were dark, tight, and filled with the evidence of many lives lived together. Burnt bone, charcoal marks on the walls, multiple hearths sharing one space. Imagine 20 people, 3 generations, a wolf pelt drying near the fire, someone nursing a child, someone dying of infection. There's no door, only the rock around you, the flames beside you, and the constant press of other bodies. The idea of a room of one's own was inconceivable. Being alone meant being vulnerable to cold, to predators, to hunger. To sleep alone was to gamble with death. To cry alone was to signal weakness. And so, life was witnessed always. If someone was angry, they showed it. If someone was in pain, they were seen. No secrets, no shame, just humans trying to keep the fire alive. These early shelters were often located near water sources and hunting grounds, providing easy access to essential resources. The walls of these caves were sometimes adorned with primitive art depicting animals and hunting scenes, which not only served as decoration but also as a means of communication and storytelling. The flickering firelight would cast shadows on these drawings, bringing them to life and creating a shared experience for the inhabitants. The communal nature of these shelters meant that skills and knowledge were passed down through generations. Elders would teach the young how to make tools, hunt, and gather food. Songs and stories were shared around the fire, reinforcing cultural values and strengthening social bonds. The constant proximity to others fostered a deep sense of community and interdependence. In addition to caves, early humans also constructed temporary shelters using natural materials such as branches, leaves, and animal hides. These structures provided protection from the elements and could be easily dismantled and moved as needed. The flexibility of these shelters allowed early humans to follow migratory patterns of animals and adapt to changing environmental conditions. Let's move forward 2,000 years to a different kind of crowd Rome, the bustling empire of baths, bricks, and spectacle. Life in Rome was grand, but it was also public. A woman named Livia wakes in her apartment in Ostia Antica. She lives on the second floor of an insula, a kind of Roman apartment block. The walls are stone, the neighbors are loud, the windows are open. She makes her way to the latrina, a shared toilet. Marble benches with keyhole openings, no doors, no partitions. People chat, exchange gossip, discuss philosophy. She sits down beside a stranger. There's eye contact. There is laughter. Someone offers her a vinegar-dipped sponge. Later, she visits the thermae, the bathhouse. Here she'll undress fully, be scrubbed by another woman, talk business, listen to poetry. The bathhouse is the social network of ancient Rome. Bathing wasn't just tolerated in public, it was expected. Even emperors like Hadrian and Marcus Aurelius bathed with others. To hide was to imply shame. To step away from public life was to risk invisibility. Better to be known, better to be part of the tide. The Roman bathhouses were architectural marvels featuring intricate mosaics, marble columns, and expansive pools. They were divided into various sections, including the caldarium, the hot bath, the tepidarium, warm bath, and frigidarium, cold bath. These spaces were not only for cleansing, but also for socializing, conducting business, and even political discussions. The bathhouses were a melting pot of Roman society, where people from different classes and backgrounds mingled freely. In addition to the bathhouses, the Roman forums were bustling centers of public life. These open spaces were surrounded by temples, markets, and government buildings. Citizens gathered here to hear speeches, watch performances, and participate in civic activities. The forums were a testament to the Roman belief in the importance of public life and communal engagement. Now England, the 12th century. Stone castles, mud cottages, thatched roofs, and open hearths. Let us enter a hall house, the standard design for both rich and poor. One large room, a central fire, low wooden beams, thick smoke curling toward a hole in the roof. Everyone sleeps together, the lord, the lady, the servants, the children. Curtains may hang around one bed, but not to preserve modesty. They're there to block wind and smoke. Meet Marin. She's 14, a kitchen servant. She rises early, barefoot on the cold stone, careful not to trip over the scullery boy. She stirs porridge in the pot, watches the embers glow. When she bleeds for the first time, there's nowhere to go. She hides behind a barrel, but others still see her. Later, she sleeps beside the spit boy and 2 other maids, not by choice, by design. In wealthier homes, the solar room appears, a raised, warmer loft, but even kings and queens slept with their attendants nearby. To sleep alone was strange, even risky. If you died in the night, who would know? The hall house was the heart of medieval life, serving as a multifunctional space for eating, sleeping, and socializing. The central hearth was not only a source of warmth, but also a place for cooking and storytelling. The smoke from the fire would fill the room, creating a hazy atmosphere that added to the communal experience. The walls were often adorned with tapestries depicting scenes of hunting, battles, and religious motifs, providing both insulation and decoration. In wealthier homes, the solar room was a symbol of status and comfort. It was a private space where the lord and lady could retreat for solitude and relaxation. The solar was often furnished with wooden chests, embroidered cushions, and fine linens. Despite the presence of this private room, the concept of privacy was still limited, as servants and attendants were always nearby. By the 16th and 17th centuries, townhouses emerged, tall, narrow buildings in London, Amsterdam, Paris, but though the walls multiply, they're still made of timber, still paper thin. Neighbors know each other intimately without speaking a word. They hear fights, love, whispers, confessions. A woman in Edinburgh drops a pin on her floor, and the tenants below taps the ceiling in annoyance. Eavesdropping becomes both art and accident. In 1675, one Dutch minister wrote in his diary, "Last night I heard the grocer's wife sobbing. By morning I learned she had lost a child." Privacy was not physical, it was behavioral. You whispered, you pretended not to hear. You built your silence into the wall. The timber-framed houses of this era were characterized by their distinctive architecture, with exposed wooden beams and plaster walls. The narrow streets and close proximity of buildings meant that sound traveled easily, creating a shared auditory experience for the residents. The creaking of floorboards, the murmur of conversations, and the clatter of daily activities were all part of the ambient noise of urban life. In these townhouses, the concept of privacy was more about discretion than physical separation. People learned to navigate the thin walls by speaking softly, using gestures, and maintaining a respectful distance. The shared spaces, such as courtyards and communal gardens, were places where neighbors could interact and build relationships. Despite the lack of physical barriers, a sense of community and mutual understanding prevailed. Long before air conditioning, houses breathed, and with breath came scent. A family in Prague roasts onions. The scent clings to the neighbor's curtains. A woman in Vienna gives birth. Blood and vinegar fill the room below. A death in Naples. The alley smells it by morning. In the tenements of 19th century New York, residents used newspaper for insulation. But still, the cabbage, the coal smoke, the mold slipped through every crack. Life wasn't clean, it wasn't private, it was shared, down to the last breath. The smells of life were an integral part of the sensory experience of living in close quarters. The aroma of cooking, the scent of fresh laundry, and the pungent odors of waste and decay were all part of the daily reality. In rural areas, the smell of livestock and freshly tilled soil added to the olfactory landscape. In urban settings, the mix of industrial fumes, street vendors' offerings, and human activity created a complex tapestry of scents. These smells were not just nuisances, they were markers of life and activity. The scent of baking bread signaled a meal to come, while the smell of smoke indicated warmth and safety. The odors of illness and death were reminders of the fragility of life and the shared human experience. Despite the lack of modern conveniences, people adapted to these sensory challenges and found ways to coexist. Privacy, when it arrived, wasn't for comfort, it was for control. In the 15th and 16th centuries, noble families in France and Italy began adding withdrawing rooms, private reading nooks, music chambers, prayer closets. In Florence, the Medici had keys to individual cabinets. In England, Queen Elizabeth I had a personal privy chamber, but even that required 2 attendants. Keys were jewelry, locks were status symbols. To have a door to close meant you had something to protect. The introduction of locks and keys marked a significant shift in the concept of privacy. These mechanisms were not just functional, they were symbols of power and wealth. The ability to secure one's possessions and personal space was a privilege reserved for the elite. The design of locks became increasingly intricate, with ornate patterns and precious materials reflecting the status of the owner. Withdrawing rooms in noble households were spaces for contemplation and leisure. These rooms were often adorned with luxurious furnishings, including velvet drapes, gilded mirrors, and fine art. The privacy afforded by these rooms allowed for intellectual pursuits, private conversations, and moments of solitude. The presence of attendants, however, meant that complete privacy was still elusive. Industrial cities swallowed privacy. New York, Chicago, Berlin, Manchester, hundreds of thousands flooded into cities chasing work and squeezing into rooms the size of closets. A report from 1893. 16 people, one room, no bed, a chair, and 2 crates. The public toilet was 2 blocks away, shared by the entire street. In Warsaw, a tailor sewed coats while his children slept on the floor beside him. Privacy, once the domain of nobility, was yanked back out of reach. The tenements of the industrial era were characterized by overcrowding and inadequate living conditions. These buildings were often poorly constructed, with minimal ventilation and limited access to basic amenities. The lack of space meant that families had to share rooms, beds, and even cooking facilities. The communal nature of these living arrangements created a sense of shared hardship and resilience. Despite the challenges, tenement residents found ways to create a sense of community. Neighbors helped each other with childcare, shared food, and often emotional support. The close quarters fostered a sense of solidarity as people navigated the difficulties of urban life together. The absence of privacy was a stark reminder of the economic disparities and social struggles of the time. And now, a quiet question you may have asked yourself. If people lived in groups in one room with no doors to shut, no walls to hide behind, how did love happen? How did intimacy unfold? How were new people made with so many eyes nearby? The answer, like the act itself, is not always spoken aloud, but it was there, always. In prehistoric cave sites, archaeologists have found darker recesses, farther from the fire, farther from the cluster of hearths, sometimes a pile of furs, sometimes a smooth, flattened stone polished not by nature, but by use. These were not bedrooms. These were chosen corners. The flicker of flame kept most people warm, but lovers, they found their own warmth in shadowed silence. In rural Europe, barns often became the preferred place. The hay, the quiet, the space, all made it easier to slip away unnoticed. In many homes, the marriage bed sat in the same room as the cradle, the spinning wheel, the salted meat, and the rest of the family. But still, life continued. Children learned when to look away, when to roll over, and when to go tend the fire. In 18th century France, travelers noted how even inns offered little privacy. A single room might hold 3 beds and 6 guests, but no one was surprised to hear soft sounds in the dark. It was not shameful. It was expected. It was human. In Japan, paper-thin walls divided families, but the idea of inryo, restraint and consideration, meant that if you heard something, you pretended not to. In 19th century Russia, it was common to send younger siblings on long, late errands at very specific times. In Scotland, a boy might be allowed to sleep with a girl in a shared bed, fully clothed, under supervision. The custom was called bundling, and it didn't always stay innocent. Even in the tenements, overcrowded, creaking, sweating through the walls, love still found a way. A couple might wait for the midnight train to pass, or for the neighbor's cough to start, or for the coal stove to pop and hiss just loud enough to mask a kiss. A curtain drawn, a back turn, a favor repaid with silence. No locks, no keys, just understanding. Perhaps the most surprising thing is this: intimacy does not require privacy. It only asks for permission. A little trust, a quiet pause, a glance that says, now, and a nod that says yes. People have always found a way because they had to, because they wanted to, because even in a full room of others, two people can still feel alone together. Something shifted in the 20th century. The psychological world blossomed. Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Virginia Woolf, and with them the idea of the inner world, a place inside ourselves that needed protection. Children got their own rooms, closets for secrets, drawers with locks, diaries with keys. In 1948, an American home catalog advertised private bedroom, quiet space, your child's sanctuary. This was new. Now solitude was good. Privacy wasn't just a privilege, it was healthy. The 20th century brought a new understanding of the importance of privacy for mental and emotional well-being. The rise of psychology and the exploration of the inner self highlighted the need for personal space and introspection. The design of homes began to reflect this shift, with separate bedrooms, study areas, and private retreats becoming standard features. The concept of privacy extended beyond physical spaces to include personal belongings and thoughts. Diaries, journals, and locked drawers became symbols of individual autonomy and self-expression. The ability to retreat into one's own space and reflect on personal experiences was seen as essential for healthy development and emotional resilience. Today, we build walls with insulation, doors with deadbolts, rooms with purpose, a space to work, to rest, to hide, and yet the cameras are watching, the phones are listening, the internet knows when you cry. We've traded thin walls for transparent lives. Today, we build walls with insulation, doors with deadbolts, rooms with purpose, a space to work, to rest, to hide, and yet the cameras are watching, the phones are listening, the internet knows when you cry. We've traded thin walls for transparent lives. We locked the doors, but someone else made copies of the key. The modern era presents a paradox of privacy. While we have more control over our physical spaces, the digital world has introduced new challenges. Surveillance cameras, smart devices, and social media have created a landscape where personal information is constantly monitored and shared. The boundaries between public and private life have become blurred as technology enables unprecedented access to our daily activities. Despite these challenges, the desire for privacy remains strong. People seek ways to protect their personal information, secure their digital interactions, and maintain a sense of autonomy. The balance between convenience and security is a constant negotiation as we navigate the complexities of modern life. As you lie in a room of your own, as the silence hums around you, know this: you are part of a long, tangled story, one of closeness, of crowding, of whispered words, and overheard prayers. You come from people who shared everything: the smell of bread, the sound of tears, the warmth of bodies curled together for survival. Now you drift alone, and that is a luxury and a loss. Maybe we never had secrets, only silence, and maybe the floorboards, even now, remember. The journey from communal living to individual privacy reflects both progress and loss. The silence of modern life contrasts with the shared sounds and scents of the past, highlighting the evolution of our relationship with privacy. As you lie in your room, the floorboards beneath you carry the echoes of history, the stories of those who lived without locks, who shared their lives openly, are woven into the fabric of our existence. The luxury of solitude is a testament to the advancements we have made, but it also serves as a reminder of the communal bonds that once defined our lives.